The following presentation is a production of Ride the Wave Media.
It's the Best Birth Podcast, where we interview experts that elevate you as you prepare your heart and mind to have the best birth.
Each episode will interview professionals so you are prepared for pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. Our experts will build your confidence and empower you to trust your intuition throughout your pregnancy.
This audio is taken from videos on YouTube. Watch the entire episodes on YouTube at Birth Made Mindful. You're listening to the Best Birth Podcast. We're here today with our guest, Stacey Singleton from Motherhood Matters.
All that Stacey has ever wanted to be when she grows up is a mommy. She became fascinated with natural childbirth at age 6 when her nephew was born and has continued to educate herself. Her journey for knowledge in the area of child development and childbirth has been continuous. Stacey has a bachelor's and master's in early childhood and has been a preschool teacher and director, as well as a baby sign language instructor. She has given birth to 4 amazing children and holds certificates in infant and toddler education and RIE, Resources for Infant Educators. Stacey is currently raising 3.5 teenagers, is passionate about research, and is working towards a lifelong dream of doula certification. She's almost there. One of her biggest missions is to empower parents. Welcome, Stacey.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're so excited to talk to you about, everything that you're doing to support parents in birth. What led you to want to become a doula and an advocate and a supporter of mothers?
When I was 6, my nephew was born. And I can remember my sister sitting us all down as a family, and she did Lamaze and saying, here's how it all works, right? And since then, I was fascinated. I'm like, okay, how does this work? How does the breathing work? How does the baby come out? All these different things. And just really became excited about the whole process of it. And so just continued to learn as much as I could. Like you said, that having my undergrad in child development and, wanting to do that. And then as I started having my own kids, I actually chose the Bradley method that I totally love because I felt that it empowered me. And I feel like today in society, we are not empowering parents as much from the very beginning. And I really feel that that's what we need to do because that is helping them have this relationship with their children for the rest of their lives and every decisions they make. And so while being a doula, that's what I get to do. I'm not taking over. I'm not putting my thoughts into them. I'm just saying, you got this. You got this.
That's so cool. Could you share, are there a few tenets of the Bradley method that you feel offer the most empowerment to parents?
Yes. So something I love about Bradley, first of all, Dr. Bradley very much believes that it's a husband-coached method. And something that he taught that he was very passionate about is that this is your first chances as a husband and wife or mother and father or in whoever you are together, this couple, to be parents, right? So the communication you have during labor is going to help you through the rest of your child's life. And so I love that, being able to ask for help or being able to say, don't touch me, don't rub my back, or could you get me water, or any of those things, that really helps to build that relationship as starting parents. The other thing that I love about Bradley is that for me, it taught me about my body. And so it taught me about, the analogy I use for every parent is the turtleneck sweater, right? And so that your cervix is like a tight turtleneck sweater. And that this tiny baby has to fit through that. And the more that you tense your body and hold on to that, the tighter that turtleneck sweater is going to be, and the harder it's going to be able to get that baby out. And so for me, visualizing that and being in control of my body and not having somebody else tell me, you just need to relax. But why? And so just having those little aspects, I know with a recent birth that I had this week, that we were able to also just look at the signposts of Bradley. And so I was able to, her sister was in the room, and so I said, okay, look at this signpost, look at where she is now. And we could actually watch her labor progress just by noticing these signposts. And that was just an amazing aspect of her being also able to be in tune with her body to go, okay, maybe it's close to the end.
What were a few of those signposts that you noticed in this birth?
So one of the very first signposts, once you start labor, in active labor, when you first start having contractions, is that you don't, or you talk, right? You laugh, you talk, you have a contraction, you go, oh, oh yeah, that one kind of hurt. And then you continue to talk with the people around you, right? So that's kind of the first layer of the signpost. The second signpost is that they're not talking through contractions. And so she would get kind of quiet, and I'd say, okay, they're getting more intense. And then the third one is that there's no talking in between contractions, no talking during contractions, no talking in between, that the person in labor is just completely focused, right? They're focusing inward, and they have to control all those emotions and everything. And so there's no talking. And then after that, at transition, is kind of a doubt stage. And it was interesting with this birth. I know with my own births, I was like, I can't do this. I'm done. Get me out of here. And I've seen other births like that. I had one that she was like, I can't do this. Give me an epidural. And it's like, you're just at the very end. And that's right at transition. That's right before they dilate to 10. And with this last birth, she said, this isn't fun anymore. And that was it. And then she transitioned. And then her body just automatically, she started wanting to bear down. And she had the baby.
This is so curious. It makes me want to go back to my own birth video and to look to see. I feel like I would speak in between my contractions the whole time, but now I'm wondering if maybe in the pushing stage there was a little bit of that silence, or like that meditative, just turning inside of yourself and really like looking towards that finish line.
Right. And really getting down to work, right? So it's really the labor side. And I think that, as a doula, being able to recognize those stages and to kind of be the advocate at that point. Because at first, they can be their own advocates, right? They can say, yes, you can turn the lights on, you can turn the lights off. But as it progresses, I see that is my job to step in and say, okay, now they're not ready for this. Now we need to keep the lights low. We need to keep everything quiet. That if people come in, that I get to say, this is what the preference was for this. So that they don't have to worry about anything. They can just do the labor. They can just do that work.
I remember reading recently, even someone entering the room is an intervention. It's a disruption of what could be taking place for the mom.
Yes. It is so amazing. I actually had one birth, and the lights were low, and I have little like cotton ball pats, and we'll put them in their bra with essential oils to just kind of help them calm down, whatever sense that are comfortable for them. And she had decided at the very end to get an epidural. And I said, okay, this is your choice, right? And the anesthesiologist came in, and he said, wow, it smells so good in here, looks so good in here. And he dropped his tools all over the ground. And I watched just the mood completely change, right? And she was like pulling herself back and kind of like, okay, what's going on? And it was so interesting to see just that little bit of change in the room. And actually that is, your cervix is a sphincter. And so there's the sphincter law that it talks about, that if there is an interruption, your cervix can actually close up again. And so that's something that I also appreciate about education, sharing this. I'll go over with mothers, okay, what is something that may make you anxious? What is something and she may not know all of those things, right? But so that we can kind of help to maybe eliminate them or just be aware of them so that doesn't happen.
Even having that fear in birth, am I going to tear? Is this baby going to fit? Those things can psychologically disrupt the dilation of our cervix. Like you said, you could be dilated and then maybe you're thinking, oh, wait, is my baby going to fit? And then all of a sudden baby comes back up and you lose that progression. And so keeping a positive and, really supportive environment around you so that you can continue progressing in labor.
Right. So you don't have to think about that either, because those are things you just want to move forward in a continuous motion.
You mentioned with the Bradley method, it being a way to teach husbands how to help. So then let's talk to the point of the benefits of a doula. How can the doula support this birth and also not take the place of the husband?
Right. And that's a fabulous question. So this last birth, amazing father, right? Father of, this is his third baby. So he kind of knew what he was doing, but I'm also there to support him. And there was a joke. He's like, I think my hamstring needs some massaging. Like, maybe next time. So there was some that, but I was also there to support him. So at one point I was able to grab a peanut ball and said, hey, do you want to use this for her? So that I'm not getting in the way of that relationship, but I am there to anticipate what may need to happen, right? And so I have another birth that's coming up in a few months, and something that they said that they would like me to do is maybe even call the families so that they can just be a family when the baby's born, that they don't have to think about that I can go ahead and do that for them. And so that is something that I really appreciate, that I'm not getting in the way of them building these relationships, but I am helping them. If the doctor comes in, I can answer any questions that they have so they can just focus together on that moment.
Do you work with midwives that you have, or does the client normally bring a midwife, or how does that work?
So at this point, with just starting out working with clients and things, it has been wherever the client is going to give birth. And so eventually I would like to build where I have a relationship with others and I can be of help there. I would also really be interested in helping. One of the reasons that I chose to be a doula too is that there are so many mothers that don't have the support. And that there are so many mothers that we're actually losing because they don't have the support. And so there's a lot of insurances like Medicaid are actually be able to, they're working on it, that they will be able to have a doula and that it will be paid for. And so that is also part of my passion, is those people that don't have the spouses, that don't have the mothers, that they are getting the attention that they need, and that they are getting, the prenatal, that I go and visit with families beforehand, see how they're doing. I'm there for the birth, and then I go afterwards. And I see how nursing is going. I see how all that is going. But not everyone is that lucky that they have that community. And so I'd also like to be there for those that need that as well.
And I love that you mentioned the provider too. I did say midwife, but doulas can be available in hospital birth as well. So that was a great point. Thank you.
Right. Well, and like I said, I had one birth that she did get an epidural. And so that is even something that I could just be there for her. And it was actually amazing because after the baby's born, the whole family was there in the room. They're all excited to see this baby, right? As soon as the baby's born, everybody disappears. And they all huddle around the baby. Well, she still had to get stitched up. She's still delivering the placenta. She was shaking, right? And I just stood next to her and just held onto her and figured out what she needed. And I think that was something that really hit me at that point of that is what we're doing as doulas. Is once again, we are there for the mother through all of this. And I just held onto her and said, there's just, a couple more stitches going on. You got this. And telling her what was going on with the baby. But the baby wasn't my focus. I could just be there for her.
That's so beautiful, the support of a mother and recognizing they need somebody to support them through every stage of that labor and delivery. Tell us a little bit more about what your role is after that baby is born. So as a doula, do you go and visit the family and provide a little bit of support thereafter?
I do. So right now I am just doing one visit at a time. Eventually I would like to do more postnatal ones if people need more assistance with that. We put so much emphasis on, yay, you're pregnant and here's a baby shower and yay, this. And then after the baby's born, we say, great, what's for dinner? And I don't think that we put enough emphasis on how we can help the mother in that sense. And I think that that is part of my role, right? In going back, and also when you're in labor, there's a lot going on, and before there's a lot going on, right? And so I usually visit within the first week after the baby is born, and just say, okay, how are you feeling? And do like a rating scale to see postpartum depression. So there's a scale that I use, and there's a well-known scale, and just keep track of that and say, where are you at? And just sit with her and talk about how beautiful this baby is. And then also I love talking about the birth afterwards. Don't we all want to share our birth stories? And isn't it so cool to share it with somebody that was there, that maybe saw something a little different? And so I share what I see and they share and they're like, oh, I didn't even know I said that, right? And so I share that with them. I see how nursing is going and just kind of keep an eye on that and see how baby looks. If there's things that I recognize, I can say, hey, this might be something you want to look into. Something I'm really passionate about too is research. And so making sure that what I share is research-based. It's not just, well, my great grandma taught me. And so when I go and visit them, just make sure they're, if they need help, say, hey, can I help you unload your dishwasher? Can I help you change your sheets? Just be there for just a short time to see what they really need. I know that when I would have a baby, just having clean sheets, it just makes my world change completely.
Well, and there's this window of time where you are receiving a lot of support after the baby's born, and then it seems like all of the support kind of disappears.
Right.
And you're expected to be back on your feet and cleaning the house and preparing the meals and watching the other children. It seems like that is kind of the time when we as women need to start preparing for additional help, what we need. I know like mealtrain.com is a wonderful resource where you can anticipate we're going to need more than just 2 meals after our baby's born. Right. Are there any friends or family members that can help to bring in a meal for our family? And freezer meals, just preparing something so that 4 weeks after your baby's born, you're still probably not sleeping very much and recovering. You still need preparation that will help you in that time frame.
Right. And that comfort of just knowing it's going to be okay, right? And I think also just allowing you to bond with this baby and to just get used to that. I remember with one of my kids, I was at Target 3 days after I had a baby. I don't know why I was at Target, but I think I thought I needed to do that, right? And I think I wish someone would have said, just stay in bed, enjoy this time.
We're giving you permission to tell everybody, I am staying in bed and I am enjoying my baby. Have somebody else go to the Target.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to go back just a little bit to labor. Every person we talk to, we learn different insights and techniques and experience. Are there specific pain management techniques you have during labor to help the woman?
So something that I really appreciate about doula is that, about being a doula, is that it is a lot of distractions, right? And so it's, let's try this position and let's try this. And so something that, like I shared before, for me and when I work with a lot of other mothers, it is that visualization, because I think that that's empowering. Right? That seems like using essential oils, either with massage and using the carrier oils, or just to breathe and to take them in. I think also finding the right position. Sometimes women may get to a hospital and they may be told to get in bed and they're stuck there. And they don't know if they can move. They don't know if they can get on the birth ball. They don't know if they can squat. They don't know if they can get in the shower or in the bath. And so I see that that's also part of my role, is to see what fits for you, what makes you most comfortable. And so with working through natural childbirth, that's what I really see my role is that making you, because birth is not comfortable, right? It's never going to be. Even people that have epidurals, it's not going to necessarily be a comfortable position. And so I see that my role is to find the most comfortable position within the pain, but that you can also focus on what you need to do. And so with another birth that I had, she really liked being on the ball, but also just for her, sitting on the toilet was very helpful. So we made sure that she drank lots of water so she can walk back and forth, and just being able, she was in a hospital, so there wasn't like a birthing stool or all these other things. Whereas like at a birthing center, they have like the silks that hang from, and they have the railings, and they have the birthing stools, and they have the tub. They have a lot more positions and options. And so within a hospital, it's a little bit different of trying to find a position that's going to be most comfortable for the mother, that she will get the most relaxed, that her body can do what she needs it to do.
And is there kind of a balance there between comfort and doing what's necessary for baby to come?
Yes. There is. And some, like I said, one that was induced, she needed to be monitored constantly because she was on Pitocin, right? And so that was really hard, because she would walk and they'd say, okay, we need to change the monitor again, and so it's hard, because once you start those interventions, so once you start being induced, then you have to have other interventions too. right?
And as you're looking at interventions, there are some wireless monitors. You can ask your nurse, hey, do you guys have a wireless monitor? I've heard the tip to bring kind of like a tighter fitting tank top so that you can keep your monitor in place. So if you do have to wear the continuous fetal monitoring, it's not being shifted around with your own movement because you have this cute little tank top that's holding it in place. So just like tips like that, where you are utilizing the intervention, but you're going to now improve and increase your comfort in that situation.
And with her baby was so wiggly. And so we tried everything, and we tried, the belly band, and we tried multiple bands wrapped around him. And for a while, I just sat on the floor next to her and held on to it. Once again, that's my job, right? Is just to make sure she can be in the most comfortable position, and so that she can get done what she needs to. And so I'm here for you, right?
It almost seems like your own stamina has to be pretty miraculous.
It does. It does. Afterwards, usually after a birth, because I don't sit down much, I'm usually walking around or I'm squatting. And afterwards, the backs of my legs, I'm like, that was a good calf workout right there.
You feel an equal workout to the mama.
Yes, definitely I do.
It's so fun to hear these experiences and these positive experiences too. We interviewed your niece.
Yes.
And she has since had her baby though. Yes. It's just so fun that we were worried about getting that interview in before she delivered, and now she's delivered within this podcast.
Right. And I was actually really afraid that she was going to deliver today. Mm-hmm. And so that was another thing. We had a conversation with the baby in utero, and we said, you may not come these days. And he didn't. You cannot even tell that she is going through hard labor because of her focus and because of the environment that was created, because of things she didn't have to worry about, right? She didn't have to worry about who was coming in. She didn't have to worry about, are her kids taken care of? She didn't have to worry about any of that because we had talked through that before. We said, okay, how are you feeling about this? Are you nervous about this? All those kinds of things we had already worked out before.
And she teaches the Bradley method.
She does.
What do you see as the connection of information and experience? Do you feel like that was very powerful in creating this birth experience, or do you feel like it was a lot of factors with her personality and just the way things were set up in her body?
I think definitely Bradley is a huge key, right? Her sister was there, and I was explaining the signposts to her sister while she's in labor. And so it was amazing. And she actually commented afterwards, she said, I had never recognized them, just like you said, while I was in labor until you started explaining them. Because I would say to her sister, so look, she just got serious. So that means she's moved to the next phase. Okay, look, she's going through this. So once again, having that knowledge, I think is just so empowering, because I think that in today's society, everybody has to be an expert in something, right? And we even sometimes think that with this person has to be an expert in, the preschool teacher is an expert in raising my child, right? But I think that it is important to remember that we are the experts in our children, and we're the experts in our bodies, and we need to trust that. And we need to say, okay, this is what's happening, but I need more information. And so I think for her, having that knowledge and having that experience, and she said, okay, this is what I teach in classes, right? But how do I really practice what I preach? And I said, you really practice what you preach, right?
Mm. Talk about on-the-job training for the sister.
Right. She was really excited. I said, okay, you're next. You ready? She's like, no, not ready for that.
One of the skills that they teach you if you take a hypnobirthing class is to put a picture of a rose over the clock. So you're not worried about the time on the clock. In the Bradley method, is there a similar recommendation for trying to, eliminate the distraction of, well, how much time has it been?
I think the signposts are kind of the time that they don't come, because something to realize is that we can't put a time limit on it, right? And so we can't say, okay, first stage takes 1 hour. Second stage, or you'll dilate each centimeter an hour. And so I think just having her, and I know for me too, when I had my fourth baby, I had a partial break of my water, and which means the baby doesn't engage right away. And so I just leaked continually. And at the time, we lived in Manhattan, and there was a hurricane going on. And so I actually walked to the hospital because I was hoping to put myself into labor, and it just didn't do anything, right? And then all of a sudden, I went straight into hardcore labor, and she was born within an hour. But the thing is that I can remember being like, why is labor so hard, and why is this happening? And my body obviously was doing work all along, but I couldn't recognize it. And then I remember my labor just being so hard. And then I remember saying, I can't do this anymore. And I looked at the nurse and I said, I'm in transition. And she said, I've never had anyone diagnose themselves. And I was like, we're almost done. And it really just gave me hope of it's almost time to push.
Wow.
One of the quotes in the book, Hands-Free Life by Rachel Macy Stafford, she says, the most meaningful life experiences don't happen in the when, they happen in the now. So you were able to be in that present moment and recognize the challenge you were going through, but also, give yourself the credit for what you were doing.
Right. And I think that's empowering because just like you said, I gave myself it. I didn't have to look at external people. I didn't have to look at the doctor saying, okay, you're dilated and you're about ready to go. And so I think that is really powerful because I will say there's been so much in my life that's really hard, right? But I'll say, wait a minute, I gave birth to these kids. If that was hard, this is nothing. I can do that. And that's what I want to give to other mothers when they're raising teenagers. Wait a minute, I gave birth to you. I can tell you, no, you might not take out the cart today.
Oh. Every week we share a Mom Squad secret. This week it's from Kendra, and she says, heartburn is very common in pregnancy. Pace your eating and give yourself a buffer between your last bite and bedtime. Oh, that heartburn. They always joke that it means you'll have more hair for your baby. Who knows if that's true or not. But, I just remember the heartburn being prevalent.
Yes.
Well, Stacey, do you have any resources that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Yes. I think something that is super helpful is looking. So I love Ida May's book on natural childbirth. I love that book. She has lots of stories. And so something that I really appreciate is that every story is different because I'm sure each one of us, each one of everybody everywhere, their story is going to be completely different, right? And so I appreciate being able to read those stories of women that had completely different labors, that I can also see myself in them, right? Also, I'm sure Amanda recommended it. There is the Bradley book that has the signposts that have other things. It talks about how your pelvis is shaped, and it talks about how the baby's head is like a key. Now it has to turn, and it has to turn. That was another thing that really helped me go, okay, if I'm not relaxing, I have to slow down. And something I think that is really important as mothers and is just to trust yourself. That you also need to go with your own intuition. There is so many resources and so many grandmothers and so many mothers that are going to tell you all these things to do. I had a great grandmother that used to tell me to rub whiskey on my kids' gums, right?
When they're teething.
When they're teething. And I was horrified. But I think as mothers, we need to learn to trust ourselves as well. And so while there's these amazing resources, at the end, I think you have to say, okay, what is best for our family? What works for our family?
I did want to ask you about the sign language.
Yes.
So you have certifications in sign. Is this something you've used with your own children?
Yes. So when I was a preschool teacher, I went to an NAEYC conference when I was 8 months pregnant. And they had a class all about American Sign Language. And I had taken American Sign Language before that. And they were talking about, early stages. This was almost 20 years ago. And just talking about the benefits of it. And so I started signing with my kids very early on. Actually, as soon as they were born. I started signing milk. Every time I would nurse them, I would sign milk, and I would sign all done, and I would sign more, and I would sign all those things. And so we also use different programs that I learned and songs we could sing. And by the time with my oldest, of course, I remember her the most, and my youngest with the gap. But by the time my daughter was 2, she knew over 400 signs. And I think the amazing thing is a lot of people worry that is going to prohibit their verbal skills, and it actually enhances it. And so I remember with my boys, there were certain colors, yellow and orange were really difficult for them. And so I would say, okay, what color is this? And they would go, they'd have to think about it. And then finally they would either sign yellow or orange, but it helped to make those brain connections, their synapse. It was just another way. It also helped their small motor, especially in boys, really helped them to develop their small motor, that they were able to communicate in that order. It also helped, I remember with one of my little ones, that I was pregnant, and my first two are 13 months apart. So there was a lot going on.
Bless you.
So I was pregnant. I had to run all these errands. And I remember my oldest at the time, she was sitting on the ground, and I said, okay, we have to run out and we have to run all these errands. And she looked at me and she signed milk, and then she signed eat. And I was like, oh, I forgot to feed you lunch. And then I thought, I forgot to see. She was like 7 months old. I was like, I forgot to feed you lunch. I'm so sorry. And I didn't even realize how much she was getting.
And she could express those needs. That's what I loved about signing. We did baby signing time and signing time, a resource that you can find online. And my children were able to communicate their needs before they could verbalize them.
Right.
And that just makes the transition so much easier from a time you feel really frustrated if your mom or dad or your care provider doesn't know what you need. So signing can be that bridge for them.
Right. It was amazing.
I did sign language with my oldest son, and one of the main signs we did was please, and that still has instilled good manners from that young age. And my second son, he did have a verbal delay, and so it was helpful to have all that communication going on before he was able to verbalize it. And yeah, with my third, he caught up pretty quick, but we did it the same as well. And then I just had to make the connection. I am a teacher as well, a preschool teacher, so the NAEYC was, yeah, I got that.
Well, would you like to share anything else with our listeners, how they can prepare their hearts and minds for birth?
I think like I said, just kind of get to know your body and verbally be able to tell your partner what you need during labor. I think that is a great communication, to be able to have, to be comfortable with each other. And once again, I think that helps all the way down the road. I think knowing what you want, right? What are your boundaries? What are the things that it's like, okay, I absolutely want this, but also know at the end that you're going to have a beautiful baby. And so I think knowing those certain things, I know there's certain things that it was like, no, I definitely want this. But as labor progressed, it was like, I don't see that as much as a value right now. And I think allowing myself to do that was really empowering too. I've met so many women, if they don't have a natural childbirth, that's a real struggle for them. And I don't think anybody should feel that way. I think that no one's here to shame anybody. I think we all try our best. I've met a lot of women lately that say, oh, I could never do natural childbirth. I met a woman today at the gym, and she said, I could never do that. And I said, you were just in this class. You want to bet? I'll bet you could. And either way, you're going to be an awesome mom. And so I think that is a big thing, is just trusting ourselves and allowing ourselves to make mistakes. You know, I always say that with my kids, I know what I'm doing wrong. You know, with having my degree in it, people used to say, I'm sure you're the best mom ever. And I can say, no, I can tell you all the ways I'm messing up my children and all the ways they're going to need therapy. And I think it's important to realize that this is a learning process for me as well as my kids, and that I'm growing with my kids. And so just to have it be okay to have those growing, learning moments together as a family.
We want each of you to create the best birth for you, finding that knowledge, educating yourself, finding all of the experts that can help you to have the best birth. And ultimately, in the end, you will.
Yes. Relying on those communities, being with the friends who will support you. We support you. We're rooting for you. Thanks for joining us on today's episode. We hope you've been elevated and inspired by this week's expert.
Subscribe today so you never miss an episode. And please share our podcast or post on your social media so that other moms and dads-to-be can also have the best birth.
Please note that the information provided is based on the expert's insights and personal experience. It is not intended as medical guidance. Please seek the advice of your medical provider as it applies to your specific condition.